Who?
You gave me a piece of paper yesterday. Oh, forgot to say.
What?
I forgot the
mic.
Yeah.
See, they won't be able to hear.
No. Said it. So. Oh, never.
Sharon decided to give it that on the show and 10 minutes later.
It's okay. It's all good. As long as it's still back. Or,
I remember there's a place in the
Can you hear it? You can hear it. You can hear? Yeah? It sounds like ruffled mustard. Rumbling.
There's a place in Mesharim, in the middle of Mesharim on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
where
can
we
hear.
bought the.
That's okay.
Thank you very much. It's where we bought the ורחל from Torah. You've been in there?
Yeah, that's the place.
Okay, let's start.
Okay.
Let's start.
אם לא תדעי
You
לך.
go to sleep on.
We'll talk about
Two
it.
different people.
Okay, so we'll talk. It's here, on page Kafdimo. Okay? So this is really the continuation. In the middle of Rebbe, these Maimarim are one. Almost. But he discusses them together in the same breath, pretty much. So originally, I imagined that the Alter Rebbe said this one and the one we just learned yesterday, and Vayishkem Lavan B'Boker, the third one, really the fourth one in the Parsha, or the fifth one in the Parsha, fourth one in the Parsha. He discusses them all together because they're all on the same topic. Okay, and this is especially good for your wives to hear this one.
Did you answer my question now?
No, I didn't have time to look.
You understand? There's a
Yeah, I
contradiction.
understand. אם לא תדעי לך היפה בנשים. So if you do not know, you the most beautiful woman, this is from the Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. צאי לך בעקבי הצאן, so go out with the footsteps of the cattle, ובעית גידיותייך, and shepherd your young sheep, or your young goats, על משכנות הרועים, in the places where the shepherds dwell. So it's like it's an image, obviously, because all of Song of Songs is an image of the connection between Hashem and us. And we're the woman, we're the feminine there. Right, this is the whole question of why, in the end, since Hashem is neither male nor female, why do we treat him more as male than we do as female when he's neither really and he's both? So it's really a tradition from it started from the very beginning that Hashem is a provider. So he is the relationship with him is defined like the relationship between a male and a female. That the more the person becomes a receptacle, a vessel, the more Hashem comes down into the world. And that's one side of the relationship. There's another side of the relationship, which is between a person and reality, or between the Jewish people and reality. Where in that, when it comes to that, or even with the Torah, when it comes to that, then we're actually the male. And the reality, the nations of the world, they're the feminine. And the Torah, in the sense of the Torah Shabbat Peh, is also the feminine, and we're the masculine. So there's many different variations to using the male and female image in defining relationships in the world. So here, it's obviously between the person and Hashem here, and the person is a beautiful woman who doesn't know something, is lacking something. So what is she lacking? What's going on? What exactly is she lacking? So let's see. Hiתה ורחל היתה יפת תואר ויפת מראה. It says about Rebbe, when Yaakov saw her, she had a beautiful Torah, and Torah is a word that he's going to define now. Torah, if you ask somebody who knows Hebrew, what does Torah mean? It means what he looks like. It's his face. Or some other word. Viefat Mare. And he's beautiful of, again, how he looks. So what's the difference between Torah and Mare? It's one of the most important questions. And it goes back to the question between Tzelmeinu Kidmutenu. When Hashem created man, what was the difference between being made in God's image. That's Kidmuteinu. And then Tzelmeinu is a little bit more difficult. What is the Tzelem? Tzelem is like, I don't know how to even translate it into English. I guess it's another image. It's another word for image. So the Rambam in Maren Vuchim, he begins even Maren Vuchim by explaining the difference between these two. So he has different explanations how to understand these two words, what they mean. So here is the same question. What's the difference between being beautiful of Toal and beautiful of Mar'eh?
So what's the difference?
Okay, so let's see. Perush Yefat Toal. So the be of beautiful Toal is B'tziyur ha'everim, is the form of the body.
Physical form.
Meaning, it would be like to be of beautiful Toal when Kaf Gimel.
Yeah, I can't find the word.
No Tadila. Next line. We're not going to go over the parentheses. What is this like? So you know that in the Middle Ages, and this is something that the Arizal embraced fully, not just. It's not clear even if he embraced it, whether he discovered it by himself, or it's not clear. It was a whole theory of form, of how the human form needs to be. So this is an old thing. It's called the golden section or the golden mean.
The ideal form?
It's the ideal form. And it's based on this number. It's a natural concept. The Greeks only discovered it. It's in nature. It's almost everywhere that we look. And the most important thing is that the eyes are accustomed, the brain is accustomed for some reason to see this ratio between two things. It could be the length and the width. It could be other things in the it's accustomed to seeing this ratio at 1.618 is the short form of it. It's called phi. The letter phi is used in Greek, and it defines what the nominal, what the best type of relationship between parts is. So, without getting into phi right now, because it's not so important, in Hebrew it's called the love ratio, because it attracts the person. And the numbers that make up this ratio, which are known strangely as the Fibonacci series, it really is the love series. In Kabbalah, it was completely adopted by the Arizal. He uses it everywhere. And it's a very important thing in his thinking. When he divides up the human body, he mamish divides it. I mean, the main division is the navel, and the navel is exactly, that was the main division in the body. It's exactly 1.618, the ratio between the navel to the end of the feet, divided by the length from the navel to the top of the crown of the head, is in a perfect person is 1.618. It's this number. Okay. So that's Ifatah, but the main thing is that it has to do with what we call midot, what we call the midos of a person. Meaning, externally it's like the form of the body, but internally the form of the body is revealing, as it were, that's why we're attracted to it. We sort of like exchange one for the other. We say, if he's beautiful on the outside, he must be beautiful on the inside, and what we mean by beautiful on the inside is really the midos. Is really a person's chesed, is a gvura, and so on. And the midos are called that because they're measured. And that's the most important thing about them, that it's refining them by getting them to be the right measure. So how do you get something to be the right measure? Well, you know, if you're cutting something, I don't know, cutting wood to build something. So you measure. If you have a good measuring, if you work by measuring, so you have to get it right, and then you cut it. But if you're a craftsman, you don't really measure. You do it by eye, and they refine it again and again until it fits exactly the way they want it, because they know that measuring it is not going to do it exactly right. It's very strange, but it's like a process that if you're a craftsman, you do it by trial and error. There's a trial and error, and they can do it quickly, but it's never exactly. I mean, a good carpenter won't. He knows exactly what parts of the cabinets or whatever he's installing he can't do in the shop. He has to come and actually he knows where the walls are not going to be exactly straight, and he knows here I'm going to have to play, and that play is like how you refine it. So when we do mitzvos, it's a process of refinement. It's doing it by eye. It's like doing it. It's not exactly like it says in the Shulchan Aruch, because you're actually doing it in the real world. So you try to do it right, and then it comes out a little off in this direction, a little off in that direction, and you play with it until you get the right measurement. So that's like sort of in human interaction the same thing. How do you learn how to interact properly? What's the intent, and so on. So it's a refinement process that works a lot with feedback, and you have to get feedback from the environment. And so when you see somebody who's very beautiful, in the sense of their stature, so Yifat would be more like stature than how their organs or how their limbs are in relation to one another. So it gives you, again, in the back of your mind, there's this unconscious idea that this also reflects their inner self, and that somehow they're also a beautiful person in terms of their actions. Okay, in terms of their midos. Okay, that's Yifat Torah. בציור האיברים לפי תכונתם במידתם. ויפת מראה, but then there's another thing called יפת מראה. It's beautiful of, you would say, it's a beautiful sight. And when we say a beautiful sight, he says it's beziv v'hod klaster panim. It's the light that comes out of the face. So, getting back to what your wife wrote yesterday and her whole, what she's into. So that whole thing is mostly with the face. And it ignores the whole stature of the body. But when Yaakov saw Rachel, he saw both sides of it. He saw both the stature, the midos, and the light of the face. Light of the face is something else entirely, even though the face itself is also constructed that way. Right? There's the perfect distance between the eyes, between the eyes and the bottom of the nose. You can find this on all these in anatomical atlases. The one who studied it the most was probably Leonardo da Vinci.
I'm struggling with this conceptualization. You're saying to me the observer projects their thoughts and reads into what he sees and understands what
we interpret.
He interprets what should be inside. He obviously can't see what's inside.
No, but that's how we work. We look at the outside and we decide what's on the inside.
So a beautiful person.
You think they're also a scoundrel. But that's how we work. That's how the human beings. We're external animals in that sense. The animal soul looks at, that's seichel chitzoni. That's like the external seichel. That's how it does things. It judges everything by its cover. It looks at everything by what it looks like. It's chitzonius. Really chitzonius. Settled, but it's what we have. So when he saw her, he saw it. But what he's saying here right away is that there's something about the light of the face which is different. At least you think it's different. Could be that it's not, because it's just genetics. But it's different in the sense that it's not measurements. Even though again in the face there are also proportions, but that would be connected to the fatwa, to the stature. But in terms of the essence is revealed through the light of the face. So he said the Knesset, the whole Jewish people, the source of the Jewish people is called Knesset Yisrael. And it's called variably in Tanakh, Rachel. And Shem HaPasuk, Rachel Nifnei Gozezeh Elam. We saw this in the previous minor. That the ewe, E-W-E, the female sheep, she's quiet, she's silent when she's being sheared, when her wool is being sheared. So we said that was the symbol for how the Jewish people are in the exile, that they don't have a voice, that they lost their voice. And what it means not to have a voice is not to have leadership. The king is a person who uses his voice, who changes things with his voice by commanding. Amar Malka Kartura. Va'inyan. So we have to understand that really, when he saw Rachel, what did he see? He saw the source of all the souls of the Jewish people. He saw that from her he would be able to build people the way that he wanted. That was Yaakov's forte, was his ability, his knowledge, or what he went for. His goal was to build the people. He knew that it's almost like he knew his mitato shlema. He knew that his bed would be whole, which means that everything that would come out of him would not be like Abraham and Isaac. Abraham came out of him Ishmael, and Yitzchak came out of him Esau. He knew that everything would come out. That's why it was such a tragedy for him when it turned out that the brothers treated Yosef like he's another Esau. And that's also why he couldn't be consoled for Yosef. The same reason. Because even if he is, okay, he's not as good as the others, but he'll change. And now that he's gone, he thought, so now my bed is not complete anymore. My offspring are not complete. But Yaakov knew that that's his strength. His strength is to be able to give birth to a complete, the whole people. And when he saw Rebbe, he said, this is the woman that I can do this with. She contains all the souls that I'm looking for. And again, the idea here is that the source of the souls is feminine. It's not masculine in this sense. It's not from Yaakov himself, even though you think it's from Yaakov. No, it's coming from Rachel. She's called Knesset Yisrael. She's the source of all the souls of Am Yisrael. So he says right away, this is the same issue that came up when Hashem created man, and he said, in our likeness, in our image. Likeness, image, what's the difference? Same thing, right? פירוש בצלמנו, כמו שכתוב, ועל דמות הכיסא, דמות כמראה אדם. דמות, even though it means a figure, is like stature, like Torah. Why? First of all, because the word dmut is the same letters as midot. So it's talking about like the same midot that we talked about in Torah. It's the proportion between the limbs. But it says, I saw on the chair, Yechezkel says, I saw on the throne of glory, I saw a figure who was like the figure of a man. So it says, where is Yechezkel standing? He's standing in the world of Yetzirah. The world of Yetzirah is exactly that. It's the measurements, it's the midos. It's like the vav of Hashem's name. So it's about, how do we know this? Because he says, Dmut kemare Adam. The Adam, the real man, is the Atzilut. Dmut of that, a Mare of that is Olam HaBriya. So now we know what Yefei Mare is. The Bria is more related to Mare. So he said she was Vipat Torah, Vipat Mare. So Mare is in Bria. And Dmut is Lemido, so he's standing in Yetzirah. So this is what we say, that the difference between Yechezkel and Yeshaya is that Yeshaya was able to see things from the world of Bria, and Yechezkel saw things only from the world of Yetzirah. And Zechariah, who also sees the Merkava, he also sees the throne of Hashem, he sees it from the world of Asiyah. And he just sees Susim, that's all he sees. There are angels that are called horses. That's all he sees. So each one of them saw from a different vantage point, meaning his consciousness was a different level. Very interestingly, what is Yechezkel most famous for? He's most famous for his vision of the third temple, the final temple. No, he's more famous even for maybe
the chariot.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so the other thing that he's most famous for, if you learn a little of Yechezkel, is at the end of the last 8 chapters of his book are about a vision of a new temple. So what does he do there? He stands with an angel, and the angel's holding a measuring rod, kava midah, it's called. And he measures with him. He goes with him, measuring all over. So Yechezkel, amongst the prophets, he's called the architect. Okay. Yeshaya is called the painter. And he's not an architect; he's an artist.
He gives the image.
So he gives an image. He sees it at a higher level, much higher level. And Zechariah, he's more a politician. He was also in the time of politics. When he was the prophet for when they came back to Eretz Yisrael. So he prophesied for Chagai Yisrael Malachi, the 3 prophets that came back from Babel and started prophesying again at the beginning of the second temple. And they led the whole political side of consulting to Zerubbabel and the people that were...
This is before Ezra.
This is a little bit before, yes. Ezra came a little bit later.
He came with the second migration.
Yeah. Okay. So
just before you continue, you said image and likeness.
That's how it's translated.
But likeness, okay. But likeness could refer to deeds. An image can refer to...
I don't know. I think it's a completely arbitrary translation.
Okay.
It means both.
But in English, likeness could be used to describe deeds, like actions.
Maybe. Anyway, so in Hebrew the word of earth, Tzelmeinu is Dmut. והוא בחינת לך הווי הגדולה והגבורה. וכך הוא בנפש האדם 7 מידות אהבה ויראה. So Tzelmeinu, when it says Tzelem, what do we mean by Tzelem? So the Rebbe, when he now analyzes the word Tzelem, he says Tzaddik is 90, Lamed is 30, and Mem is 40. So how does this work? If we have the 90 refers to the 9 Sfirot from Chokhmah down to Malchus, and the Lamed Mem are the 2 parts of the Keter. The first part of the Keter has 30 Sfirot in it, and the top part, the Mem, the highest part, the Ati, is 40. Has 4 and 3 there. And so he begins to develop this whole picture. It's Sha'ar Drushei HaTzelem, it's called in Yitzchak. And he explains how the whole word Tzelem really is dividing the stature of Hashem and of the person into Sfirot. And the moment you talk about Sfirot, you're talking about something architectural, you're talking about something technical, as it were, measuring things. Okay? But this measurement is very important. By the way, there was a medrash called it's a medrash that the Rambam Mamish hated. He said you have to throw this out. It's not a real medrash because it says there called Midrash Shi'ur Koma. Shi'ur Koma means approximating or measuring the height of something. So what was it measuring? It was measuring. It says amongst other things, everything there is numbers, but it says amongst other things that the height of Hashem is 236,000. I think it says amot.
Whatever. Who cares?
So the Rambam sees this and he says, "What are you doing? Crazy." One of the most famous Rambams is that the Rambam couldn't stand it all. Couldn't stand at all any kind of anthropomorphism at all. So right away, thank God, we also have the right. And Rebbe yells at him and says, "What are you talking about? Everybody anthropomorphizes." So it's not so simple. What does the Rambam want? What, he doesn't know that the Nevi'im are full of this.
He had other problems. He had political problems when he was writing this stuff. He was fighting off a whole wave of Muslim ideology, which called the Jews pagans. Basically, they called us pagans.
Maybe.
Because of all the references, because of all the no, but he was addressing their critique.
He really believed that it was a problem to use these images, and so that's why did I say it's the first part of Ma'ayin Nevuchim to undoing the images and saying that they're just metaphors. Settle, but they're metaphors. What do you want? You can't use them. And so what do you want? On the one hand, so what's the Rambam's point? The Rambam's point is that all the metaphors are a metaphor for thought. He changes all the metaphors from being metaphors of what we would call the world of Yetzirah to the world of Bria. He wants everything to be intellect. And he says, if you're involved in any way in midos, in measuring things, so then you've got a problem with your conception of Hashem, because it's not going to work. Meaning, how do we see it? We see today that there's the external side and the internal side. That's what he's going to explain now. That the external is what is the stature, and the internal, which is infinite, which really has no measure, is what shines through the face. And really there, that's like the intellect, and it's called Chokhmat Adam Ta'ir Panav. A person's wisdom comes out through the light of his face. It shines through his face. And Chokhmah, as we know, is bittul. Is on the contrary, it's not worrying at all about what my stature is like. Okay. On the other hand, how can you say that a person shouldn't refine his midos? Okay. So the Rambam he does a trick, an interesting trick. How does he call refining your midos in his book? He calls it ilchot deot. Da'at is part of the intellect. And in fact, he says, all the mitzvahs that you do, everything you're doing is just to refine the intellect. And you know what's going to remain from you after you pass away? Only your da'at. That's it. Meaning, don't worry about anything from here and below. Doesn't matter what you're at. All your actions, even, they're only to come to refine the intellect. That's the Rambam's position on this whole topic. He's only in the world of Bria. He doesn't accept even the world of Yetzirah. For him, the world of Yetzirah is too far down. It's too removed. These metaphors are too removed from Hashem. You have to bring them back up into Bria. It's fine. It's okay. That's the Rambam. In Chassidus, you have the big thing about Chassidus is that it's the last installment of Jewish thought. So it takes everything into account. The Rambam has his place, but the Rebbe also has his place. The Rebbe says that in being used these metaphors, it must be good for something. Okay, it's not just that everything is intellect. You also have to work with the heart. In fact, the whole point of Chassidus is somehow to get to the heart, and the heart is built by these measures, at least its external aspect. So everything has to be taken into account. And in the end, the tzelem and the dmut. So how do they again? So the tzelem is like stature, like toal, and dmut is like it's very interesting that's that way there. But you would think that dmut would be the midot itself. But he says no. The tzelem from the Arizal, dafka, that's the midot, and kidmutenu is not midot. That's like the inner aspect. That's what shines through the face. Okay. אך אין ארוך מידת הנפש שהיא בעלת גבול לגבי מידותיו יתברך שהוא אין סוף ולמידותיו אין סוף ולמידותיו אין סוף כדי שיעיר על נפשו אור האהבה מאור אין סוף ברוך הוא צריך להיות בבחינת ביטול הנפש במציאות אליו יתברך. So he says as much as you've built your midos, they're nothing compared, and that's why it's called kidmutenu, they're nothing compared to the midos of Hashem. The midos of Hashem are infinite. This is a big deal. That when it says in this Medrash, Shiur Kamad, that Hashem is 236,000 amot, so how should I conceive of that? What the Rambam said? I can't stand it. He says he's right, because when you talk about Hashem, it's really only a metaphor, and you have to understand that in Hashem these midos have no end. You can't measure them, even though they're midos. So this is very important thing. In the end, this is called the 10 sfirot that are hidden, concealed within Hashem himself. That there's 10 there, but you can't measure it. You can't figure out. You can't even say that you can't really even measure that it's 10. You only know that it's 10 after it comes out. There's a whole concept that in Hashem himself you can't measure it. So what is it? There are the 10 midos, but each one is infinite. So what does it mean, for instance, to have an infinite midah? We don't understand what it means. So the best example that I know is that if I hurt somebody and I ask them to forgive me, so the first time they'll forgive me. If I do the same thing again, second time,
maybe.
Also third time, his mama, she's erech hapayim, is very forgiving. He'll forgive 10 times. But in the end, they'll say, "Listen, shape up or ship out. Like, forget it. Can't keep doing this." And he gets angry at you again. What are you doing? Like, every single time you're counting on my being able to forgive you. But Hashem, there's this amazing thing. There's this amazing thing.
נימור. כן, צד שמאל.
So there's this amazing thing. They don't answer. They don't continue. So there's this amazing thing that as many times as you ask him forgiveness, you accept it. We project on Hashem our failings. So we say, how can I come to you again, Hashem, and ask for forgiveness for something I just repeated for the
because I wouldn't have given it to
I wouldn't have. He says that that's your midos. Your midos are limited. So when it comes to doing it again, you get stuck. But Hashem, His midos are infinite. That's what the Rambam doesn't want you to fall into. He doesn't want you to fall into the incorrect drawing a conclusion from how you are. There's an incredible pasuk in Tehillim. It says, "V'larasha amar dimita hayot ehyeh kamocha." To the wicked, he says, "You imagine me to be like you." Incredible pasuk. He says, wickedness. When a person's wicked, he's closed off from doing tshuva. Why? Because he imagines that Hashem is like him. It can't be. I've already done this 1,000 times. How can I come again? He says, you imagine me to be like you. There he says it's about something else. It's about something else, but there it's he says, really, you imagine, he says there the meter is different. He says the person who's a Rasha, just as the context in film is a little bit different, but it's the same idea. He says, so you imagine that when somebody hurts you, if you're a Rasha, you immediately take revenge. So you imagine that I'm the same way. So that if I didn't take revenge when you did something wrong, so you imagine that I forgot about it. But don't think I forgot about it. I'm not like you. I can remember it forever. That's how he says it there. But it also works in more simple things. That you imagine that the Rasha is stuck because he can't believe that Hashem will actually accept his tshuva. You're right, you may have to work hard. But Hashem won't not accept it because you've done it 1,000 times. That's not the reason. Because his midah of chesed, of rachamim on you, is infinite. It's one of the things why... So, anyway.
So if Rambam says, refining midas is not the ideal state, and the ideal state is all in the thought,
no, actually, it says you have to refine your midas, but it depends on the mind. It's not just a blind action. It says the blind actions are just for habit forming.
So give me an example.
So for instance, do tzedakah.
Right.
It says what's better. It's better to give 1,000 times 1 shekel than give 1,000 shekels at the same time. But that's to form the habit of giving. But in the end, if you don't have that, if you don't give in order to perform the mitzvah itself, you don't have the mitzvah in mind, he says you haven't done anything. It's not the action that we're interested in. That's just to form the habit.
So if the habit is formed, then it makes no difference whether you've given it 1,000 times or you've given it once.
Now it could be that once you have the habit, and it's ingrained already, it's become innate, a second nature for you, so it's better to do something that affects the mind. So give 1,000 because it affects the mind now. It's something much higher. In the end, the Rambam thinks you have to change your consciousness, not your habits. He's not a behaviorist. Mm-hmm. Even though it sounds in the beginning like he's a behaviorist, but he's saying when your dot changes, that's what continues on in the afterlife. Your dot, your consciousness, meaning your consciousness of we say something very similar. We say also that when a person passes away, he continues to dwell, to work on the Torah that he learned. So he's working on the understanding, the conscious awareness of what the Torah means. Because obviously there's no more action. Because the soul doesn't have a body anymore. The body is just to form the habits in order to allow, and this is so. I was most impressed by it from Rabbi Vadia, but everybody practices something. So all the big family for something like this, that you have to read a book, whatever it is, a few dozen times until you can really read it. So he used to say that he went over, and I heard him mention it, he said, I learned the Shas verse 23 times before I started thinking about what it meant. And he said, I did this so that the language of the Shas would become my language. The language of the Talmud would become my language.
23 times?
That's what he said. He said, before I really started thinking about like writing something or something new.
I'm struggling with the calculation.
Said you don't have the same. Well, no, he doesn't learn that's a day. He learns 50, 60, something like that. Said he has a gift. He does it very quick. First of all, the first time is harder, second time is easier, and so on. But in general, if you want to get to know something, so you have to read it many, many, many times. You have to become very familiar. That's just the habit forming. Forming some habit, some pattern in your mind that relates to this. Once the habit is formed, you can start thinking about what the meaning is. You see, by the Alter Rebbe for sure. I mean, how many times do you read every halacha in the Shulchan Aruch to be able to write his? How many times do you go over Shas to be able to write his Shulchan Aruch? To be able to write this? It's like how many times do you read the Arizal? Hundreds of times for sure. How do they do this? They have a gift that I don't have. I can't read it 100 times. I have maybe one book that I read in my life 100 times. Unfortunately, it's not such a great book. But these books, so they take time.
You're not advertising the title.
It was when I was much younger. You can say it was an Encyclopedia Britannica for children.
Wow.
When I was 7, 8, 9. So then I was reading a lot. After that, I started thinking. The problem is, why are you thinking before you have the pattern in your head? So it's very nice to say a lot of drushim on something, but have you really read it over and over and over until it's like, that's why there's a big deal in Chabad to learn by heart. And you lose a lot if you don't do it. So even if you know one mimer well, but you know it at the level that you learned it by heart, you mamish know the words, singing in your head all the time, and you know the meaning. In that place, you have both the vessel and the light. So that would be like the Torah and the Mare. The Torah would be like the vessel, the words which I'm learning, and then the meaning becomes the world of Bria, the Mare or Tzelem and Demut. So I think you want to go? Where are you going now? Okay.
Backstroke.
No. Oh, you're going to the...
We're going to the big one,
No, I'm not going to that. I'm not going to that. I'm going to have to rethink my thing.
I'm going to the little one.
I may be going.
Okay. So let's just finish this line. So he says, so the midos that we have is just a vessel in which we want the infinite light of the midos of Hashem to come in. So you know there are midos there, because it says B'Tzelmenu Kid Mutenu, the Mutenu in Hashem, which again I don't know how to translate it, but it's like the word midot. But it does. But the Tzelem is the stature, and the Kid Mutenu is Dafka here by Hashem. It's the infinite nature of the midos. And to get to the infinite, he says the same thing in the Nefesh Adam. What do you have to do? So that you receive not just the stature of love, which is like the midah, the hand, let's say, the external aspect. You know, it's not the hand itself, whatever it is. But that stature, it's the thing that's measured. That you gave 1,000 times tzedakah, so your right hand is outstretched. It's used to being outstretched. But that's still not the Ein Sof. It's still not the light of Hashem inside of me. You just prepared the vessel. So that you receive the infinite light of Ava, of love, of Chesed. צריך להיות בבחינת ביטול הנפש במציאות אליו יתברך, שהוא להיות בחינת עפר ודומם לגבי אור אין סוף ברוך הוא. You have to completely nullify before Hashem. And it's interesting. It's because it's a contradiction, because if you've worked on something so many times and you feel that you've mastered it, you have the measure, it gives you your shoot, it gives you a feeling of self, it gives you a feeling of accomplishment. He says and that's exactly what's going to inhibit the infinite light from coming in. The more you work, the more bittul you need. The more you advance, the more you have to know it. That's what it says. That the greater a person becomes in his actions, the greater his yetzer, meaning his yeshut, his feeling of self. And it's natural, because look at all the accomplishments he has. So those accomplishments, he has to treat them completely as just a vessel, nullified completely, like it's earth, like it's nothing before Hashem. So that, that's what he repeats in the Tanya many, many times, that the only way that the inner light of the Midah comes in, or in general, the Or and Sof, the only way that the infinite light of Hashem comes into a person is through Bittul. That's why Kulam b'chokhmah sita in the end, or Kulam b'chokhmah itbariru. The Chokhmah is what prepares the person to receive the real light of Hashem. It's also, Midah also is. I mean, if you see a person has tremendous midos, he's very, very refined. He does everything according to what the Torah says. It's very refined, but he could be so full of himself he doesn't even know. Why? Because that's the natural reaction. That when I achieve so much, the same thing with learning. The more you learn, the more you know, the more difficult it is to say to Hashem, as much as I know, I'm empty. I'm an empty vessel. All my knowledge is just a preparation for me to be able to sit here with you and for you to teach me. And when you teach me, it's not just the technical side of things. It's the real light of the Ein Sof. It's real. What does it mean that you get the light of Ein Sof? Then one word here can become, you can talk about it for 10 hours.
It's overcoming the gaiva, essentially.
And the gaiva here is almost a natural development. Because you're looking at the external aspect of how much I've achieved. How do you get rid of this gaiva? The first thing to understand is that the fact that Rebbe can go over Shas 23 times in, I don't know, let's say in 5-6 years, however long it took him, that's a gift from Hashem. Even though it looks to him like it's a lot of hard work, but to have that type of intellect, or to have that type of atmada, resilience. Okay, he's very resilient, steadfastness. To be able to do that is a gift from Hashem. Not a gift. So I didn't develop. You have to remember all the time that Hashem gave me this as a gift. You have to see everything in the past as just a gift. Even though you're right, at this moment I have to work hard, but when I look at the past, it was all a gift from Hashem. I didn't do anything. Hashem did it all. All the good things I did, Hashem did. Because you can't. That's the beginning of Chokhmah, of Bittul. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu says. Moshe Rabbeinu says in the Benachnuma, he's done so much. He's taken the people. He's conquered Mitzrayim. He's brought Mitzrayim down to its knees. He's split the sea. He's taken the people through it. He's made the Egyptians. He's done all this, and then they come to him and they say, "What do we want now? We just want something to drink." You did all this. You can't. Yeah. And this is I didn't do anything. Who are we? We're nobody. What? Look at you collected as a capital as your value in the eyes of the entire world is that you're the greatest man ever alive. You see, my capital is not worth any. I don't have any capital. So that's the greatness of Bittul. That's what he wants you to get to understand that, and that's when the Tzar Panim comes out, the Marae Panim, the light of the face. That's called Chokhmat Adam Ta'ir Panav. That's through Chokhmah, through Bittul, the light of the face comes out. Okay.